Mr. Robinson on. Recently, Representative Paul Ryan, the chair of the House Budget Committee, submitted his budget proposal for consideration. What parts would you support, and what would you seek to have changed in Representative Ryan's budget proposal? Mr. Robinson.
There's much to commend Paul Ryan's budget. I'm concerned that it takes a long time to balance. I don't believe that the country has enough time to wait until that point, which is why I signed on to the Tea Party Debt Commission budget, which balances in 4 years and pays off the national debt in 20. I believe that Mr. Ryan's budget abolishes the Energy, Commerce, and Education departments over time. I certainly would subscribe to getting rid of those departments as well as getting rid of HUD. I believe that if you are going to substantially cut back the size and scope of government and limit federal power, because that's what we're talking about. Right now, the federal government does anything it wants to anyone it wants at any time it wants. And that we have to use the budget process to get closer and closer to reducing the power of the federal government to the enumerated powers in the Constitution. And so that, in the main, I would be seeking to hasten the time that we get back to a limited constitutional republic with unlimited economic opportunity for all Americans. And so that is my biggest concern about the budget. We need to get to a balanced budget quicker, and that it's important that if the American people want unlimited economic opportunity once again, that you embrace a process that cuts the size and scope of the federal government faster, balances in 4 years, pays off the national debt in 20.
Thank you. Mr. Stanton.
Well, I think Representative Ryan's on the right track. It's a good start. I would like to see it expedited. I'd like to see a balanced budget amendment so that these budget writers have an opportunity to follow the Balanced Budget Act. What we're seeing with the House is posturing because the Senate is still run by Democrats, and he understands that he probably can't get this passed through both houses. I feel like that. I think we got to go with the balanced budget amendment, and we have. I agree with Paul Ryan's attempt to take care of some of the waste and fraud that's in the budget. However, I think a zero-based budget policy that goes along with the Balanced Budget Act would be our best policy going forward. I think you'll find a lot of things that are in most of the budget areas that are wasteful that we can eliminate. So it's going to be a tedious process to go through that line by line, item by item, do a zero-based budget, start from scratch, start at a zero balance, and move forward. I do commend him for what he started, but I think it needs to be expedited and have more meaningful impact to our debt and our deficit.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
It seems like Mr. Ryan might need to wear some type of flak jacket for taking on a budget which I actually think is realistic, at least in terms of the atmosphere in Washington today. Do I think you're going to be able to realistically reduce some of the debt faster? Well, I would like to be an optimist and think so. But I think Ryan, who is a very smart, methodical young man, has done his homework quite well. There is tremendous waste in government. I happen to work during the day in Fayetteville, and I have the opportunity of taking care of a number of wounded soldiers who have been over in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places there at Fort Bragg. And I listen to a lot of these individuals tell me of just the sheer waste of money. And that's only at one base. Now, I'm very pro-defense, But there's just an example of millions upon millions of dollars that every day are wasted. And every department, as we just recently learned with the a group out in Las Vegas, having a heck of a great time on your dime and mine. So I think Ryan's plan is realistic. I think it's workable. I agree with what Fred said, that he had to be lulled a little bit because of who is in control of the Senate. But I think that can change and will change, confident, come November. But it's a great start, and it's a workable model. Yes, anything can be tweaked, but I think it's a great start, and I think he is on the right track.
Mr. Hudson.
Thank you. I think the Ryan budget is a serious approach. It's the first budget that honestly looks at entitlement reform. I guess his first budget was the first approach, but again, when you compare that to the White House and the ridiculous budget that President Obama put forward, received 0 votes on the House floor. Not one Democrat would even vote for the President's budget. It was so dishonest. So I commend Paul Ryan for bringing forward a budget that looks at entitlements, actually addresses the need for reform. The other side sits back and says, we don't have a problem, we can wait another 5 or 10 years, and it's just dishonest. And every year we wait, it's going to cost more to reform entitlements. And so I like the fact that he starts to address that. I do think, though, that it takes too long to balance the budget. I think the House was operating under constraints of a Democrat Senate. And so I think what Paul Ryan, as I look at each of the 3 budgets he's put forward, this one to me is the most watered down of the 3. It seems like each time he tries to compromise to get closer to something that may pass the Senate, and I think that's the wrong approach. I think we as conservatives have got to be bold. We've got to put out what we stand for, and I think we have got to balance this budget a lot faster. And so that's sort of where I would disagree. To be more specific, agriculture is very important to this district. It's the top industry in the state and in the district. One of the things that I liked about the Ryan budget, when you look at the agriculture cuts that he proposed, throughout the last several years, the debate has always been about the program side, but not about the nutrition side. SNAP has increased some 400% under President Obama. The Ryan budget cuts, I think it was $132 billion out of the nutrition side, which I think is great, and so I like that approach. Thank you.
Well, again, we're all here because we're worried about the future of our children and our grandchildren, and it is at a great risk. The problem we have, the fundamental problem with the American economy, is the politicians in D.C., and they don't have this sense of urgency that they need to have. We've got, we're spending $1.42 for every dollar we take in. We've got our kids that are $100,000 or $200,000 in debt. We're rapidly heading towards more downgrades in our credit rating. We're talking about increasing the debt ceiling again. We're looking at becoming Greece in the Eurozone, and we don't even know where that's going to end. So there's a huge problem. And the Ryan budget does not balance for 40 years. That is ridiculous. Today is Wednesday. We should propose a budget that balances on Thursday. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting. We can't continue to wait. I will give him credit. Obama and Kissel and their ilk have proposed a budget that never balances. I don't know what they think is going to happen when we continue to go into debt, but I can tell you, you just have to look right across the Atlantic Ocean and you will see what's going to happen. It is a fact. It might happen after Obama's reelection. It will not happen after Kissel's reelection because he's not going to get reelected, but that's the theory in Washington, whether you're a Democrat and sometimes whether you're a Republican, is that if I can just move the ball past my next election, then everything will be hunky-dory and I can keep my cushy job and I can go about the business of doing whatever it is those people do up in D.C. But I'm fed up, and I think that any budget that is serious about the future of the United States, should balance immediately. And the first thing we should do again is vote on a balanced budget. It must balance under no circumstances could it not. Thank you.
Thank you.